Hey guys, Jim here. Time for another new acquisition video. And what you see in front of you, you might think, well, you've already done videos on Graham's before. I have, but the two videos that I have in my little video archive here were both from guest blade episodes. This is the first Graham that I've been able to track down and buy for myself. And this is actually quite a special one. This is not one that's often seen, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. First thing I want to say is this is an incredibly built knife. I mean, if you want something that's mind-blowingly perfectly built as a rock-solid tool, this is that knife. At the premium prices on the secondary market, it may give you a little bit of pause, and I'll tell you why. Because when I look at this knife, one of the best things about it is this blade, and it's best described as a tool, which is really what knives are. They're tools. But with this particular knife, this has got to be one of the most useful blades that I've ever seen. Now, this is based off of John's original Razels. And I'll show you what's so special about the Razel right now. I'm going to grab a sheet of paper. And we would expect, you know, as typical on the cutting edge, that it would be super sharp. But what you've also got, I may have to switch hands to get it to do it in frame here, is you have a nose that I can't quite get the right angle on here. It is every bit as sharp because he sharpens the very end. It's like a crazy sharp chisel. You've got a little bit of belly to the blade. It's not a completely flat, straight edge. So you could actually be doing all kinds of wonderful things with this knife, which really keeps it very utilitarian. And that's basically just speaking in generalities for the Razels. Now, this particular Razel is called the Midnight Razel. And why is that? Because this is actually a collaboration with Tashi Bharucha. And for those that have never had a chance to experience Tashi's designs, he does some really great things with some really great makers. I mean, I can't think of a single maker that he's worked with that wasn't outstanding already in their own field. I had a wonderful opportunity to kind of chat back and forth through messaging with Tashi, excuse me, just today. And he says this was actually kind of a special collaboration for him because he really had a great respect for John's work and what he does. And the Razel blades was one of his favorite designs out there. He says, typically when I do a collaboration with someone, it's usually, you know, kind of my interpretation of their style, and I go off in a whole different direction. And he says with this particular knife, it was he wanted to do that Razel blade, so there wasn't, you know, as far as the basic profile of it, that wasn't going to change. But what he did alter was the way the grinds were done here. And I got to tell you, with this, you've got a swedge up here, so it's a false edge up here, which looks even more menacing when you know that this part is sharp as well as this part. So it really makes it look like some kind of crazy medieval weapon. He says his goal on this was just to kind of make it a little bit sleeker, a little bit more of a concealed look. You'll notice that most of the blade disappears into the handle. And instead of having a traditional flipper tab up here, what he's done is they've just created a larger tang off the back of the blade, and that sits far forward. So instead of flipping a tab over here, you're just reaching a little bit further forward and pulling straight back. And I will tell you that that takes some getting used to. It's, you know, you look at your typical flippers, take my Shirogorov here. Very simple, very easy to do. Traditional style of flipper, even though it's a small flipper tab. You get into the Bodega, again, another very common type of flipper tab on there. Kirby Lambert, another one, very, very common, a little bit larger, and still it sits a little bit more forward than that of the Shirogorov or on the Bodega. and then my southern tarsus, which is almost directly above the pivot, and it's a larger tab to open that way. So those are what I'm typically used to. So when you take those and you compare them, there is quite a difference in its operation. Now, in its essence, it's still operating the same. For those guys that like to push button on a flipper, like you might do on a Browse, like on the Reloader, you tend to push down more than pull back. You're not going to be able to do that with the Midnight Razel. You have to pull straight back. It's a nice quick flip. You do have a bearing system in there. I don't know if we can quite get it to focus, but you might see them in there. So yes, you do have bearings. The size of that monster friggin' blade. Back down to the bearings. There you go. It's got a very strong detent, and that's one of the things that will make it more of a challenge to get open. So what he's done here is he's taken the same basic knife and he's just made it sleeker, added a few more features to it to where it was just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit more artistic. Now, from the original run, there were, from what I've heard, there were only 10 made. And of the 10, I know of 4 of them. Randy's got one, I've got this one, Barry's got one, and Brian's got one. And they all are different. Randy's has carbon fiber with a bolstered look, so there's different variations. This is the first one that I've seen that has this rock pattern, and it's a really well done rock pattern throughout all of the titanium. It's a very attractive knife. You have John's, I don't know if it's patented, but John's signature tail clip that allows you to not have any hot spots whatsoever when you're gripping the knife. There's no clip back here, and it gives you more beauty to look at on the titanium side without a clip, covering, a good portion of the knife that you would normally have done. So it's very comfortable in the hands. He's also brought the rock pattern into the back side of the pivot. Looks like he's done a little bit of a light anodize on there because it will pick up different colors. I noticed when I took it out in the sunlight earlier. I don't know if it's really being reflected very well here, but there are muted colors that come out through the titanium. It's very, very cool how he did this. And as far as the cleanliness of the design is almost completely pass-through design. Instead of running a back spacer up the spine of the frame, it just covers the butt. And we all know you want your ass covered. So there you are. Your 2 points of contact will be here at the back spacer and then here at the pivot. Everything else is clean pass-through, which, as many of you know, I prefer that. It's easier to keep pocket lint and other things to get them blown out of there. You're sitting at a restaurant, you can take a folded up napkin and wipe it out. It's a little bit easier to maintain instead of having a full back spacer where you got to really kind of dig in there and get the crap out. Overall, it is a big knife, and it is a heavy knife. You take, oh yeah, don't touch the end of it there, dum-dum. So we bring these down, do it as we always do, butt to butt, because that's when things start to get fun, when you go butt to butt. And you'll see it's almost the exact same size as a Todd Begg Bodega. However, the Bodega, a lot of people say, is a heavy knife coming in at just around 7 ounces. This is even heavier because of the blade. This is a massively thick blade. And that's really the only way that you could get such pronounced grinds to come off of this blade without doing a chisel grind. With a chisel grind, it could be completely flat on this side and they're just going to grind down one side and they can get these wonderfully pronounced grinds. So to do that much on both sides, they had to go with very thick blade stock. This is very thick and very, very heavy. Nice smooth operation to it. Makes a nice sound when it opens and it closes. I'm impressed by a lot of it. And just for those of you that might end up wanting to look for one of these, Tashi did tell me that they're doing a second run, or either they just finished up a second run. Yeah, they're on the second run right now, and he's going to be collabing again with John on a different design. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. I think that's definitely something to look forward to. So let's talk about pros and cons, as we always do. Listen, this is a big, beastly knife. This is not something that a lot of people are going to be able to EDC. But then again, you're not spending this kind of money generally to EDC a knife. With the secondary market the way that it is, I don't know what they sold for initially, but you're going to pay $1,500 to $1,800 to get your hands on one of these. So it's not a tiny investment. So you've got to be comfortable with carrying a heavier, bulkier knife. And for those of you that are, like I am, definitely search one of these out. You like a big, beefy knife, this is certainly going to be it. Has a great feel in the hand like all of John's knives do. Some people may feel a little bit of a hot spot back here from the tail clip, but it's really, you know, you're either going to have a little bit of a hot spot there and it's a very small hot spot, or what could be a much larger hotspot on almost any kind of traditional clip. So there's some give and take with that. It's a nice, very discreet carry when it's in the pocket because of the tail clip. You really don't see anything except for this little bit coming out of the backside of your pocket. So for those that like to feel that their knife is more concealed, then you definitely want to take a look at any of John's folders because they're going to have the tail clip on all the Razels and the G7s. Very slick, very cool. Now, I decided as soon as I got it that it's going to go, only because of the flipper. For some people, it's never going to be an issue. For somebody like me, you guys know I'm very picky. If a flipper tab is too squared off and the edges are a little bit rough, I'm going to ding it on that, just like I'll ding somebody on putting a cheap pocket clip on an otherwise really nice, expensive premium knife. So for me, this, after just a handful of flips, got to be painful because you really are pulling into these corners. Now, there's really not much they could do about that. If they rounded it off too much, then your finger would just slip off of it and you'd probably never be able to open the damn thing. So there had to be a little bit of a flat surface here. Now they did dehorn it. It's not a, obviously perfectly squared off, but it's just a little bit more than I want to feel when I'm playing with my knives. I'm the kind that flip and flip and flip and flips my knife all day, all night. It's almost like an OCD thing with me. Tashi's designs are outstanding, and with any maker that he collaborates with, his signature style just shines right through. It's a beautiful, fluid, and almost always a futuristic kind of look. I mean, this really is a Razel from outer space when I look at it. Beautiful lines. John shows some great architecture here with going with the rock texture. His frame locks are amazing. No need whatsoever for any kind of overextension disc or anything else. He has the perfect amount of tension on here from his cutouts to not drag unnecessarily on the blade with the detent ball. You don't have a tremendous amount of friction going up against that, but it's not super easy to disengage. So I don't really think that you have to worry about overextending that whatsoever. His pivot's very basic on this side, which means it's utilitarian. This is a good knife if you want to EDC it. Even if you're out in the freaking woods, you have only the basic tools in your truck or whatever, you're going to have a Torx on you. It's going to be easy to adjust. This side is your nice fancy looking pivot. I personally would have reversed that. I would have had the show side over here because this is typically your presentation side, what is opposite of your lock. But it really doesn't matter so much because there's not really anything here detracting from the look of the knife with the clip being, obviously omitted. Love his cutout here. It's got some nice angles to it. It's not just a straight old cutout for the lock bar. I mean, it's just a beautifully done knife. And on John's typical knives, they have a normal flipper tab. And you guys know I have been trying my ass off to get a damn Graham ever since I reviewed the other two. And I just can't seem to nail down the right one. And I thought this was going to be it. Midnight Razel, very limited, very sought after, very expensive. And I was iffy on that when I first bought it. And I told the buyer, I told the seller that. I said, I'm kind of iffy on it because I don't know if that flipper is going to make me happy. But I will tell you, you do have to, if you go kind of from the side, kind of doing it this way, instead of straight on like this, You can put different leverage on it and it becomes a lot easier. And it flips like a dream. I mean, it's not a rocket. It's not an R.J. Martin Q36. See, sometimes finger just does, look what it does. See what it does to me? Oh, poor little finger. I know, first world problems, but still, you're paying that kind of money for a knife. You should never have anything to gripe about, especially when it comes to comfort. Now, as far as performance, man, this thing is great. As far as design, this thing is great. And you saw the cutting. I mean, almost every side of this blade can be used to cut. Now, here's where I get back to the subject I touched on in the very beginning, talking about it being a tool. John Graham should be the guy out of all these guys, all these custom makers that are considering and now entering into making mid-techs. John should be doing this, and I'm going to tell you why. You look at somebody like, well, we'll talk about Jake Hoback for a second. He's bringing his Kuwait back into a mid-tech design. I told you guys about that when he was first, breathing life into that project. So you go from a $1,200 custom in that range to he's going to be offering a $400 to $450 mid-tech. It's almost identical to the original, just some slightly different materials. And that allows you to take a knife design that you love and you're more apt to use it hard because you have less invested in it. I'm holding here a $1,500 to $1,800 knife. There are not a lot of guys that are going to use this as a real tool. But that's what it's designed for. I can tell you right now, if John came out with, I don't know, just a simple G10 on this side, simple blasted titanium on this side, this blade, maybe it doesn't have to be, 154. And again, he puts CPM 154 CM. I still have never found anyone that's ever heard of it being the powder metallurgy and CM, so I don't know how it's done that way. Maybe he doesn't have to get the Boz heat treatment. Find ways to cut down the price, make it affordable. If he could make a $300 to $400 to maybe even $500 Razel flipper, that would be probably one of the best tool knives ever. You can sit there using this as a scraper. You've got enough belly in the blade to do some nice fine precision cutting. You can choke up on the knife because you've got plenty. It's not really a choil, but you definitely have an indentation here that you can choke up on this knife and do some much finer work. You can rock it to the pivot here, to this point, and that point is sharp as well, and you could actually do some very fine cutting work with this. This is a wonderfully utilitarian blade style. But given the prices that they go for, I think they typically start around $800, but you're really having to look at secondary market prices because John's books are closed. So you're paying in the range of $1,000 to $2,000 for any various Razel out there. And it's such a useful blade. If this, John, if you ever come across this video, please make a mid-tech. Please make an affordable mid-tech. I mean, guys, I'm not begging for cheap knives. I don't mind spending a lot of money on a knife. But this is the kind of blade I want to abuse the shit out of. I want to use it. I want to carry it every single day. And I don't want to think to myself, oh my God, I'm devaluing a knife that people are paying double retail for and this and this and that. Because at some point, for a lot of people, that's going to play into the back of your mind. You guys know me. I'm not really like that. I carry my knives. I abuse my knives. I got marks and scratches all over knives that other people would be afraid to do anything with. But just to know that you could take your Razel with this amazing blade and just beat the tar out of it. Scrape crap with it, scrape pipes with it, scrape paint off of something with it. Just do whatever you want and not worry about, oh, damn, I just took $300 off of the value of the knife by using it. That would be so amazing. So, John, that is my plea to you. I've only had a chance to talk to John once or twice, and he's been an utter gentleman. And, John, I have a great amount of respect for you, and thank you very much for your time. That would be my one thing to you is for God's sake, make a mid-tech that you can make a whole bunch of and that you can make at a fairly lower price. This would probably be one of the greatest mid-tech knives ever. To Tashi, again, thank you so much for giving up your time today. You really did something amazing with this. I love the overall look. I love the feel. Again, my only thing was just how that aggravates my poor... Look how red my finger is just from playing with it for a few minutes. Yikes. That's the only thing, and if it weren't for that, there's no way this would be leaving my collection. Anyway, guys, I'm still on the search, and I will find another, I tell you what. I'm going to go for right now. I've got a few more videos to upload soon. I've got a really cool Elishewitz on the way to me I just bought. An Elishewitz Custom Omega M5. I have a couple other things on the way, and I just can't remember what they are. One of these days, my Praetorian tie will show up. I just picked up a couple of really cool Snodies. I'll probably do a video on these little guys at some point. Yes, I'm getting more into fixed blades. You guys have ruined me. Alright guys, I'm out of here for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I will give you one last up-close HD look at the beauty that is this Midnight Razel. The more I look at it, the less I want to let it go. This could be bad for the person that bought it from me. Look at that blade. Beautiful satin finish. Boz heat treat. You know you're getting the king of the heat treating right there. Look at those edges. Nice mirrored edge. Tashi's logo right back there. Very impressive. Alright guys, I'll talk to you later. Thank you so very much for watching.